Thanks everyone for joining me with another episode. Today's special guest is Coach CJ Brewer. I know him personally. We've been knowing each other for what 85% of our
Yeah.
lives. But I'm definitely glad to have you here. And so give us just a little bit about you.
Okay. So CJ Brewer, born and raised Denver, Colorado. I'm really from Montbello, but I lived all over Montbello, Aurora, Park Hill, East Side. I've been named Denver. Any part of Denver I've been there. I'm from there. So, right now I'm a performance coach. I call myself a general movement specialist. So I pretty much coach any sport, whether it's football, lacrosse, basketball, baseball, soccer. If it involves a field, involves a ball, like I pretty much train it. I pretty much coach it. So I've been doing that since 2013. Former professional athlete. Been in sports my whole life. So that's pretty much me right now. I'm married with kids. Living my best life.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. So, what we're going to do just to start it off and kind of lighten the mode is I have all my previous guests leave a question for the next guest. They have no idea who the next guest is going to be. And so, the question that you have is what would be your cure for the world?
What would be my cure for the world? That's a good,
Hmm.
good question. My cure for the world. So, um, there's so many different sicknesses, um, and I don't think there's a one cure for all. But I think my biggest cure would be honesty and accepting honesty as is. So it doesn't have to be wrapped up in a nice little pretty package. It doesn't have to be, you know, with keeping your feelings in mind, but being able to accept the honest statement, whether that be something fantastic or something that could be critical. Like accepting honesty as is, I think that would be a good start.
Okay, that's a good answer. So, like I said, we've been knowing each other for a long time. At what age do you feel like you could start accepting honesty?
At what age? So,
Uh-huh.
man, now that's loaded. I think that's something that could be taught. I think that's something that could be taught. So,
Okay.
um, I'll use an example.
I mean, for you personally, not
Me
others, just
personally,
like you.
um,
Yeah, what age do you think you felt like you could start accepting
very
honesty?
early, very very early. But that's
Okay.
sports though. Sports does that for you.
Yeah.
Being able to accept, like being able to have somebody be critical of you, having somebody be hard on you. Like I was able to, I learned that really really early. But another part of that is, I think the biggest part of that is like understanding the difference between um, honesty that could help you and then what you believe becomes true, because that's actually both
Okay.
things. So I'll tell you, I got a funny story. So do you remember? Do you remember our first interaction in high school? I guarantee you probably don't, but
Uh,
I remember it like it was yesterday.
I don't. I just remember somebody coming to the one of the games, one of the basketball games, and they was like, "That's your
Yeah,
cousin," and I was like,
yeah.
"Who?" And they were like, "Chris," and I was like, "No, because all he does is talk trash to me." And they're like, "No, that is your cousin." And I was like, "Nah, I don't believe it." And then, we figured
Yeah.
out, yeah,
So
okay. But no, all right,
now
you
here's
tell
the
me.
funny part. I didn't know that you were my cousin for a long time. So
Uh-huh.
the whole time I'm talking my mess. I talk my mess to everybody. Like that was just me at the time.
Right. That's why I
That was
said
me.
where was
But
honesty
at the
that you
time,
could accept it.
I didn't get the message. So like I'm talking trash. We're actually in the lunchroom. This is study hall. Everybody's there.
Mhm.
I'm talking like Reggie Green,
Right.
Walter, Kevin, like a bunch of people are there. Like it's study hall, it's the lunchroom. Everybody's at our table. Everybody's trying to find a place to sit.
Uh-huh.
And like we're talking, and people are sitting and flirting and all this other stuff. And you're like, where am I sitting? I'm like, you can sit on my lap. You're like, no, you're my cousin. I was like, what? I said, what? And everybody's looking at me like, whoa, I'm getting those voices. So like, that's how I found out that we were related. Like I found out like that, and then like that, like so embarrassing, like humiliating. for that to happen in front of everybody. Everybody point like I remember that, like that humility.
I do not remember that, but I do like, and I'm trying to figure out who told. I don't know if it was my dad or somebody, but I just feel like it was somebody that knew. So it had to be like my dad, or maybe even Troy was at a game, but it was
I think
somebody
it's.
that
I bet
knew
it was
because I was
Troy.
like,
I bet
no,
it was Troy because like I didn't even really know that. Like I
yeah,
didn't. I didn't know. I had no clue.
yeah.
Like I had no clue, and I'll always like I'll never forgot that because it was so embarrassing. Like those kind of moments stick with you. Like, they
Yeah,
stick with you. Like I remember that. Like I remember that. Like a passing moment in
I
time. So
definitely do
like
not remember that.
um
Uh-huh.
I think that that's part of it too because like at the end of the day, like I was such a like an insecure person at that time, and that's how I kind of used to mask it,
Mhm.
just like talking trash and like putting other people down or like whatever it is, like telling jokes. That was like my mask, you know. So, um, but you know, through sports, it taught me that character trait that like just because somebody's telling you something harsh or because somebody's telling you something hard, or because somebody's telling you the hard truth, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to hurt you. Oftentimes, they're trying to help you, but it also doesn't mean that whatever's true right now has to stay true. So, like, from a physical standpoint, like if you know, like if somebody tells you you're slow, like you might be slow, but you don't have to stay slow. Just because that's true right there in that moment doesn't mean that you have to stay that way. I mean, and then for the sake of our conversation from a mental standpoint, like yeah, you may have you know something wrong with you right now, and I don't even say something wrong, something that's not where it should be right now, but that doesn't mean that that's where it has to stay. So like just because something is true, it doesn't make it concrete, you know. So I kind of get that from
Okay.
sports.
So I think that's good, and I'm glad you even brought up high school because I remember like, going to George was a hard place to be for sports if you were not already on somebody's map or you had a name really tied to you. But I mean, you did have a name tied to you, but a lot of people wasn't putting two and two together of who your
Yeah.
dad was, right? But I remember when you left and you went to South, even your interactions and just how you carried yourself, it was like you just blossomed into this confident, assured person. So how like what was the environment? How was the environment different from George to South for you?
Um, you know, it wasn't a product of the environment. It was a product of my own personal growth, honestly. So,
Okay.
um, as a sophomore at George, you know, like I'm just like kind of growing into my body. I wasn't, you know, I was a decent athlete. I did okay sophomore year. Junior year, I had a much better year. But at the end of the day, like I was just another guy. Um, I wasn't happy with that, honestly. Like I wasn't happy with that. So the change of scenery and the change of environment gave me a chance to like reflect. So over that summer, like that was the first summer that I actually took my craft serious. You know, that summer was the summer that I actually took my craft serious and decided to put work into sports. Like, that was the summer. And then, like, when I came into that season, I really got rewarded from that. So that kind of output into my craft and actually seeing the benefits of that gave me confidence. Like to me, confidence is really, really strongly gained from competence. So the more competent I had became, the better I became at sports. The more focus I got in that aspect, it gave me confidence, and it made me feel like that. That's when the environment changed to where people saw me differently. You know, because I saw myself differently. When I saw myself differently, then other people start to view me differently too. Then it's just like a snowball effect of, you know, that's when I really started becoming who I really was, and I started accepting that. So that's kind of where that came
Okay. That's good. And that's what I try to encourage all my clients, really my adolescents, is that, that's one of the first things I ask them. I'm like, well, do you like yourself? Do you love yourself? Because if you don't even like what you see or what you're putting out, why do you expect anybody
from.
else
Yeah,
to? And so I think it is very important that it's that self work
mm-hmm.
first.
100%.
All right. So tell me about this brand, how you came up with it, and what's the
Okay,
focus?
so this brand actually was created by my first client. I didn't create the brand.
Okay.
My first client created the brand. So my brother. I call him my first client. So Xavier's 8 years younger
Okay.
than me. I call him my first client. You know, Xavier and Andreas, those were the first people. Like, I introduced them to the game of football. I used to put them in the backyard and train them. So before I even understood that this was a path, like, they were the first people that I was working with. I was helping groom and grow. So um, it just was natural for me to fall into this craft because I've been doing it since I was 10 years old. You know, since before it's the time that they can walk. But I went after I was playing pro. I went and traveled. I was actually working at Wells Fargo after I played with the 49ers. I lived in DC, I lived in Atlanta, I lived in Texas. I've been everywhere. So um, my brother went his journey. He went to college. You know, he got a chance to play a little bit of pro football, a little bit of arena football. But after that, the area he was at, he needed people to start training. Like, people would start coming up to him and asking them to train. So he just started doing it. He started doing it. Called it X Factor. That's what they used to call him in college, and that was his nickname, the X Factor. So he just took that and he started the business. So it started to grow so fast that, you know, I was working at Wells Fargo at the time. He's like, "Yo, bro, I need some help. Like, this thing could really, really blow up." So that's when he brought me in, and we got a chance to really grow this thing together. So it originated from him. It originated from a need in the community of kids that want to play sports. It came from somebody with the knowledge and the skills and the ability to give it to him, and then he needed help. So I ended up taking the whole business over because he is now coaching at the University of Oklahoma. So he left because that
Okay.
was his true passion. Let me tell you a quick story about him. When he was, I believe, eighth grade, maybe eighth grade or ninth grade. No, it had to be maybe even earlier than that. I was with the 49ers. I don't remember the exact year, but they came and stayed with me for the summer, him and Andreas. And I asked him, I said, "Bro, like, what's your goals?" And he was like, "I want to be, I want to start varsity. I want to start varsity. I want to go play D1 football. I want to be a high school All-American." And I was like, "No, but what's your big goal?" Like, I'm thinking he's gonna say, "I want to play pro. I want to go be a Hall of Fame or something like that." He said, "I want to be a D1 college coach." So to watch him accomplish all of those things, it really lets me know that the power of thought and the power of belief and the power of that belief putting you into action. So that's kind of where our whole little business came from, and that's where it originates from. So I train movement, but I also train confidence. I train the fact that whatever
Okay.
you believe, like, it can really become real. But it's not gonna come real by accident. You got to actually put in the work for it. So it's pretty cool.
And that's good. So I've had some other trainers on here before that I've talked to, and they gave me some of the same feedback too. It's about, making sure the athlete knows where they're at, but they have that confidence in themselves. So I have I'll just say I got two boys. I don't want to point out which one it is, but I've gotten a lot of feedback, when he was going to these different trainers, it was like, okay, he got it, but he doesn't exude that confidence. Once he gets that confidence, he's going to be okay. As a mom, I'm like, well, I could give him feedback and positive encouragement all day long, but his response is, "Oh, you're just my mom."
Yeah,
And so when an athlete is looking for that from a coach and a coach doesn't give that to them, what would be your response to that? Like, how could you help them overcome that?
that's a really really good question. Especially when there's times where, like in sports, coaches will have their favorites. Coaches will have, people call it playing politics, but it always comes back to, um, what are you putting in? What are you putting into it? Like, are you doing the work or are you doing the work? So it's one thing for, I
Mhm.
ask my kids all the time, I'm like, what are you doing outside of the couple of times a week we spend together? Like, what's what are you doing for you? What are you doing that nobody else is telling you to do? And that really comes from having a love for whatever it is that you do, having like a legit passion for whatever it is that you do, whether it be a sport, whether it be writing, whether it be your practice, like whatever it is, you're gonna find time to put that energy into it outside of what's required of you. And as you do that, again, it always comes back to that confidence is bred from competence, and competence is gained from repetition, from practice. So if you don't feel like you're have that confidence in something, it's because you haven't made enough plays, or it's because you haven't haven't seen yourself blossom the way that you're supposed to. And why is that? That's the question. Why is that? Is it because you're not doing enough? Is it because you're waiting for somebody to give you that validation? Because if you are, it's never gonna come. Like, you have to go take it for
Right.
yourself. You got to.
Right. It's basically just you got to take advantage of every opportunity you get because you never know if that's going to be your only
Right.
opportunity. So how are you prepared
Right.
for it, right?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So you said, you started training your brothers at an early age, and then, you after you left the athletic community, you went to go work for Wells Fargo. So besides X needing and wanting your help, was there ever just like that yearn or something in the back of your mind saying, I really miss this. I want to go train. I want to do this.
It was really always like a calling for me to train. So like, even when I was working at Wells Fargo, like, I'm helping people. Like, I'm it's in me to teach. Like, that's
Oh,
it's in me to teach. It's in me to teach. Like, I've been given these gifts, and it's in me to just like pour that into people. So like, even when I was working at Wells Fargo, even though I wasn't playing sports or I wasn't getting paid to train, like, even when I'm at the gym, like, I'm working out, I'm like, I see somebody doing wrong, I'm like, hey, can I I see what you're doing, you're working hard, is there a way, can I help you? Like, I always just had that in me. Like, I'm always doing that. Like, I hate to be that guy, but it's just, I can't help it. Because if there's something that I have that I can help you and like legitimately help you, then I give it. So it's just, it was always in me. It never left. Like, watching sports, being at games, and like going to my friends, kids games and stuff like that. I always was just like trying to pour into people, and like, there's nothing more that I love more than pouring into the youth. Like, the same way that like people poured into me when I was younger. And like, I remember those people. I remember whether it was a big interaction, or whether it was a coach, or whether it was just like some one of our former players that went on to play college that just came and dropped one dime on me, one jewel on me. Like, I kept all that stuff, so I always wanted to pay that forward.
okay. Thank you. So as you're training, you're seeing, your different athletes dealing with different types of pressure. Can you share with us like some of the pressures you experienced from high school, college, and pro?
Pressures, high school, college, and pro. Um, it grows. It grows. So in high school, like, I can't remember feeling like what I would describe as like pressure. Like, I can't, when it came to sports, I can't remember feeling something that I would describe as pressure. Now, everything surrounding it, like peer pressure. And let me, I'll tell this story. I'll tell this story. This is kind of cool. So, my best friend growing up, we did everything together. We lived. If this was my house, all I had to do was jump my fence, and I would be at his house. And I would spend more time at his house than my own house. Like, with him and his brother, we would hang out all the time. Once I transferred from Montbello and went to George, like, we weren't in the same circle anymore. Like, I moved to live with my dad, moved out of Montbello, moved. We went to George. We're living in Park Hill, so we stopped hanging out. Um, at that time, he had found some little lick where he was getting fake IDs, and they were renting cars, stealing them, and chopping them. Going to
Yeah,
hotel.
that was the
That
thing,
was
unfortunately.
that was the thing. Chopping them. They were going to like the hotels in Montbello area and just like robbing those hotels. And eventually they caught. He went to jail. Got caught. He went to jail, and he ended up going to jail for a long time. Now, had I not separated, even by my choice or not by my choice, I guarantee you, I would have been right there with him. I'd have been right there with him and not even like thinking about it, because it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. It's just what we do. Like, I didn't even have
Right.
the personal foresight to separate myself from that on my own. I don't think. So fortunately for me, being poured into sports and being poured into like-minded people, it never really felt like pressure. These kids now,
Okay.
with social media and all the stuff, like they're seeing these guys, oh man, this dude just got an offer, this just dude just got an offer. Like, I can understand why they feel pressure. Like, I didn't feel that pressure in high school. Like, I didn't feel real pressure until I got to college. Now, when I was in
Okay.
college, that's when I sustained my first injury. I tore my ACL, and that was, sorry, that was pressure. That was like, okay, like I was in front of the A ball, but now I'm behind the A ball. Like, it put me into a whole new level of grind. Like, that's pressure. In the NFL, like, we're practicing on one field, I could look over to the other field right by us, and they're looking at three other people that look just like me that want to come and take my position, and that's every single day. Like, that was pressure. That's the kind of pressure that I felt. But in terms of, once I got my mindset on my goal, like, there wasn't a lot of different things I was gonna take me off of that path. There was a lot of stuff that I had to endure. Some outside, some stuff that I could control that happened, but none of that was going to take me off my path that I had planned.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Smash the like button and stay tuned for the next episode.